Chapter 302. He is coming? After taking a bath and changing into a new set of clothes, Alaric and Hershey headed to the main mansion together. At this moment, Lucas was chatting with the princess in his study. "Are you really planning to do it?" Irish asked with a frown as she looked at the determined man in front of her. "Of course. I made her wait long enough. It is time for me to take her back," Lucas replied with no hesitation in his voice. He then stared deeply at the princess and said, "If you are truly on our side, then please do not stop me." Seeing his unwavering expression, the princess sighed helplessly. "All right, I will help you." Lucas raised an eyebrow. "I am listening. Go on." The princess changed into a more comfortable sitting posture as she responded. "I will lend you my personal troops. There are not a lot of them, but they are veteran warriors with years of experience in war. I am sure that they will be of great help to your plans." Lucas was taken aback. He had seen the princess' personal guards. All of them were powerful warriors. There was even one who was a transcendent knight. "Is that person included?" Lucas pointed at the woman standing behind the princess. She was dressed as a maid so others wouldn't notice her, but Lucas could see through her power at a glance. The princess nodded at his words. "Of course." She then beckoned to the woman and told her, "Introduce yourself to the Baron." Hearing this, the woman stepped forward and saluted. "My lord, my name is Linda Barnelay. My expertise is in assassination." Lucas narrowed his eyes. "Oh." Just as he was about to say something, they suddenly heard a series of knocks on the door. Lucas could sense the familiar aura outside. He let out a smile and said, "Come in." The door was pushed open by a couple. "Greetings, my lord and your highness." The couple greeted them. Alaric noticed the tense atmosphere between his father and the princess, so he asked hesitantly, "Should we come back later?" Lucas waved his hand. "There is no need. Come here and take your seats." The princess didn't say anything and gave a silent acquiescence. Upon taking their seats, Hershey couldn't help but take a curious look at the princess. Alaric had already told her about his true identity, so she knew that the princess was his cousin. As if sensing her gaze, Princess Irish glanced at her and nodded with a polite smile. "What were you two talking about earlier?" Alaric couldn't hold back his curiosity. The princess didn't respond and just gave Lucas a knowing look. Seeing this, Lucas opened his mouth. "It is about your mother." He had already discussed this with Alaric a few weeks ago, so he wasn't afraid to tell him everything. Alaric furrowed his eyebrows. "Is it finally time?" Lucas nodded. "We cannot let your mother wait anymore. We must get her as soon as possible." Alaric was silent for a moment. He had sent most of the strongest warriors under him, and it would take some time before their return. As if knowing his worries, Lucas said, "Her Highness has promised to lend her private army. Even without Sir Galliner and Sir Warwick, we should be able to rescue your mother." Hearing this, Alaric couldn't help but give the princess a look of gratitude. "Thank you for your support, your highness." The princess shook her head and replied, "You do not need to thank me. It is also my wish to give Aunt Jade the freedom she deserves." She had seen how lonely her aunt was, so she wanted to help her attain freedom. Although she was aware of the dangers involved and how difficult it would be, she was willing to give it a shot. "So what is the plan?" the princess asked as she turned her head to Lucas. Lucas leaned on his seat and replied with a serious look. "Without Sir Galliner and Sir Warwick, we might have to change a few things." He then looked at the butler who was standing behind him and instructed, "Please bring the madam here." They needed Maria's calculative mind to make this plan a success. The butler bowed and left right away to look for the madam. 15 minutes later, the butler returned with Maria. She bowed to the princess before she turned her gaze to her husband. "You called for me?" Lucas beckoned to her and pointed to the vacant seat. "Sit down. We need your help." Maria nodded with a serious look. "Is this about Her Highness, Princess Jade?" she muttered after taking her seat. No one answered, but she knew that she hit the mark. Maria took a deep breath. "All right, tell me the situation." Looking at his reliable mother, Alaric secretly gave her a thumbs up. A few days later, inside a room located at the imperial castle, a white-haired woman was standing by the window. She had her eyes closed as she played a sorrowful melody. If one were to listen, one would definitely be overwhelmed by this emotional melody. After she played the last note, she finally opened her eyes. How many years has it been? She stood up and looked at the distant sky, her gaze filled with intense longing. Suddenly, she saw a familiar figure descending from the clouds. It moved so fast that the ordinary eye wouldn't be able to see it. A black falcon flew straight into her window and landed beneath her feet. Princess Jade was taken aback. Nighty! She bent down to tap the bird's head. It was then that she noticed a letter inside the tiny letter holder tied to its leg. She furrowed her eyebrows and took the letter, her hands slightly trembling. Is this from Irish? She thought as she unrolled the letter. The more she read, the more serious her expression had become. After reading the final line, her eyes moistened. He is coming? Chapter 303, Two Troublesome Characters. An army of about 1,000 warriors were now headed to Cadera. Almost half of them were from House Silversword while the rest were from their allied northern houses. Are you sure this is going to work? Princess Irish asked while sticking her head out of her carriage's window. Alaric, who was riding his mount just right beside her carriage, nodded upon hearing this. Mom's plans had never failed once. I have full trust in her. The princess could only shrug at his response. With the size of this army, the imperial family will never allow it to enter the city. They might even be treated as rebels. She thought to herself. As they moved closer to the capital, everyone also started to feel more nervous. The only ones who had remained calm were the warriors of House Silversword. Unlike the rest, they were aware that their baron was a mythical knight. Suddenly, an army that was almost double their size entered their view before they could even step inside the capital. What is the meaning of this, Lucas? Are you trying to rebel? Shouted a middle-aged man holding a mace and a diamond-shaped shield. Lucas glanced at the man, his expression remaining unchanged. It has been a while, Roderick. This middle-aged warrior was none other than Roderick Lassiter, the Transcendent Knight ranked 11th in the Estanian Dragon leaderboard. He had challenged Lucas recently, but he was terribly defeated. Lucas, why have you brought an army to Cadera? If you cannot give me an explanation, I will command my soldiers to kill you all. Roderick glared at the calm-faced Lucas. The atmosphere between both armies became more tense as soon as he uttered those words. You misunderstand our intentions, Lord Roderick. Lucas shook his head and explained. I do not know if you have heard of it, but there was an incident in Copperglade that involved many corrupt nobles. I fear that they might attack Her Highness on her trip back to the capital, so I decided to bring my troops to escort her and ensure her safety. Roderick frowned. He knew about the incident in Copperglade. After all, it was a matter that involved the Grand Duke, who was the biggest supporter of the second prince. In fact, he had some information about the Crimson Tower and the corrupt practices they were involved with. However, he turned a blind eye to it since many powerful houses were behind its creation, including the Grand Duke. Roderick didn't expect that Lucas would actually use that incident to suppress him. Lucas, the Crimson Tower incident is already being investigated by the local officials of Copperglade and the investigators from the imperial family's side. You have nothing to worry about. He then cleared his throat and diverted the topic. Since you are only protecting Her Highness, I will let it slide just this once. My troops will escort Her Highness from here on out. You all may return to the north. Lucas narrowed his eyes and shook his head. I am afraid that is impossible. What if you are also involved with the Crimson Tower? Wouldn't I be putting Her Highness into the tiger's mouth if I leave her in your care?
Rodriguez aura su dans lit fluctuatait d'intensely.
Lucas Silversword, are you saying that you do not trust me? He was the maternal grandfather of the second prince, so he was used to the respectful gazes of the crowd. He had never heard anyone speak to him in such a manner. Lucas didn't say anything, as if to silently admit to Roderick's words. Roderick was furious. Lucas, just as he was about to issue a command, An annoyed voice suddenly drifted into everyone's ears. "Which bastard is disturbing my sleep?" Everyone was speechless when they heard this familiar voice. Those who were from the capital were very familiar with it, including Roderick. "Your Highness." Roderick raised an eyebrow as he looked at the imperial carriage behind Lucas. Princess Irish stuck her head out while angrily pointing at him. "Move out of the way. How dare you stop me from going home?" Roderick's mouth twitched. Only the princess would dare to be this rude to him, but there was nothing he could do about it. He forced out a smile and said, "Your Highness, I am afraid that we cannot allow these troops to enter the capital. It might cause unrest among the civilians, so this is as far as they can go. My troops will escort you safely for the remainder of the journey. I assure you that nothing will go wrong, and even if assassins will come, they cannot go past our defenses." He spoke with great confidence. Princess Irish frowned. She didn't expect Roderick to be this troublesome. "No. I feel more safe with Lord Lucas' troops. There is no need to trouble you." Roderick's face darkened. This was the same as indirectly saying that Lucas' troops were stronger than his soldiers. He was about to snap when a figure stepped forward right at this moment. It was Andre Thompson, the right-hand man of the second prince and the Transcendent Knight who was ranked 5th in the Estanian Dragon leaderboard. Andre Thompson cupped his fists to the princess and said, "I am glad to see you safe, Your Highness. Since you wish for Lord Lucas to escort you to Cadera, we will not stop you, but he can only bring 100 warriors at most. Otherwise, the imperial family might misunderstand the situation. I hope you understand." Princess Irish took a deep breath and clicked her tongue in annoyance. Another troublesome guy is here. Unlike Roderick, who was only known for his strength, Andre was famous for his wisdom. He was the brains behind the second prince's faction. The princess was afraid that Andre would see through their ploy, so she didn't know how to respond. "Agree to his demands." A voice drifted into her ears. Feeling surprised, she subconsciously glanced at Alaric, but the latter acted as if he hadn't said anything. Realizing his intentions, Princess Irish nodded. "All right, we will follow Lord Andre's arrangement." Chapter 304. Alaric arrives at the imperial castle. "Thank you for your trust, Your Highness." Andre beamed as he gave her a salute. He then made a hand gesture to Roderick, informing him to vacate the road. Seeing this, Roderick nodded and instructed his soldiers to make way. Meanwhile, Lucas selected the strongest warriors from his troops. "We are ready to depart, Your Highness," Lucas informed the princess after making his selection. The princess nodded and shouted, "Let's go." Lucas sent Andre and Roderick a deep look before he commanded the 100-man army to move. "I will bring 500 soldiers to follow them. You stay here and keep an eye on their remaining troops," Andre instructed with a stern voice. Roderick nodded his head. "All right, send me a signal if something goes wrong," he reminded. Andre didn't linger. He led 500 soldiers to follow Lucas' group to Cadera. "Just what are you planning to do here, Lucas?" He pondered deeply, but he still couldn't understand why Lucas would suddenly bring his troops to the capital at this moment. With the ongoing battle for the throne behind the scenes, the presence of a third force would only make things more complicated. "I hope you did not come here to make a mess. Otherwise, that person might be alerted." Andre shivered when thought about the powerhouse hidden in the imperial castle. As soon as they arrived at the entrance of the capital, their presence quickly attracted the attention of the civilians. "That flag. Isn't that the flag of House Silversword? It seems like they came here to escort that imperial carriage. I wonder who is inside. I heard that Her Highness Princess Irish went to North Pinetown recently to attend Lord Alaric's wedding. The person inside the carriage should be her. Lord Andre is also with them. Just what happened out there for them to bring out this many warriors to protect Her Highness? Haven't you guys heard about the incident in Copperglade? I heard that there was a..." The civilians discussed among themselves as they watched the imposing entourage skip the queue. No one dared to complain, for this was just one of the many perks that was given to the nobility. Upon stepping inside the city, Andre blocked their path and said with an amicable smile, Lord Lucas, we will take it from here. The capital is protected by the Imperial Army, so you can rest assured that no one would dare to harm Her Highness here. He spoke in a friendly manner, but anyone with common sense could tell that he was indirectly telling Lucas to go away. Lucas knew that he was intentionally provoking him, so he just chuckled in amusement. Lord Andre, since we are already here, we would like to stay at the nearest inn. You see, we have been traveling close to weeks, so my soldiers are tired. I hope you understand. Andre was silent for a moment before he eventually nodded his head. Look at me and my manners. How could I forget about that? Please forgive me for being rude, Lord Lucas. He then beckoned to one of his subordinates and instructed him. You go and take Lord Lucas and his warriors to the best inn. Make sure that they are properly treated. Do you understand? Yes, my lord. The warrior bowed to acknowledge the command. He then approached Lucas and cupped his fists. My lord, please follow me. Lucas didn't reject the offer to avoid drawing suspicion. All right, Lord Andre, I will leave Her Highness in your care. Let's meet and chat another time. Andre responded with a faint smile. I will wait for your invitation, Lord Lucas. After that small exchange of words, Andre took 100 warriors to bring the princess to the imperial castle. As for the remaining 400, they followed Lucas to keep an eye on their movements. Lucas sneered when he saw this. He did not even bother to conceal his actions. At this moment, William suddenly approached him and asked with concern, My lord, will Lord Alaric be fine on his own? Hearing this, Lucas furrowed his eyebrows as he replied, The princess will bring him as her guest. I do not think these people are foolish enough to lay a hand on her guest. William no longer said anything and just quietly followed Lucas. Meanwhile, Alaric was following the princess's carriage on his horse. He came alone, so Andre didn't think much of it, but he still instructed a few of his men to keep an eye on him. Lord Alaric. Andre decided to approach him to probe their intentions. Alaric turned his head and looked at Andre with an indifferent expression. Lord Andre, is there anything I can do for you? Andre chuckled and tapped his shoulder. Don't be so stiff. Your father and I were once brothers in arms. We have fought numerous battles together, He told Alaric about his relationship with Lucas to get him to lower his guard. But how could Alaric not see through his schemes? Do you take me for a fool? Alaric sneered in his mind. He had already experienced numerous betrayals, so he was quick to sense what Andre was trying to do. Andre tried to get some information out of Alaric's mouth by asking him some unrelated questions. However, the latter expertly answered without giving any details about their plans.
Andre stared deeply at Alaric.
Was I overthinking it? Did they really come all the way here just to escort Her Highness? He felt that something was amiss, but he couldn't get any information from Alaric. Soon, they finally arrived at the imperial castle. A group of imperial guards greeted them and brought them inside the palace. Alaric used his appraisal on them. To his surprise, he found that all these warriors were actually powerful for someone in their realm. Their attributes and traits were more advanced than the common warriors. Thank you for escorting me all the way here, Lord Andre. You may leave now, said the princess as she stepped out of her carriage. Chapter 305. Palace Library and the old man guarding the upper levels. After getting rid of Andre, the princess took Alaric inside the palace. Your Highness, is it really all right for me to enter the palace like this? Alaric helplessly said when he noticed the imperial guards glaring at him. Well, if His Majesty is not bedridden, you would not be able to step inside the palace without his approval. My elder brothers are usually responsible for receiving guests, but they are busy with other matters. The princess replied, her expression becoming slightly sullen. She was still a young lady after all. The situation inside the palace might have suffocated her, so she preferred to stay outside. No wonder she did not want to leave North Pine Town. With the two princes fighting for the throne in public and in secret, the atmosphere inside the palace was unusually tense. Princess Irish gave him a tour around the palace, but they only went to the places allowed to the guests. There were some parts of the palace where the guests weren't allowed to enter. Forcing entry into these forbidden places would only trigger the alarms and alert the Imperial Guards. Even the unruly princess didn't dare bring Alaric to such places. That is the palace library. The guests can only enter the first level, while the upper floors are exclusive to the imperial family. The princess pointed to the vast hall filled with books. Alaric was stunned. House Silversword's library was like a dog kennel in comparison to this big library. Even the guards on standby are peak elite knights. Alaric thought to himself after using appraisal on the two warriors standing guard outside the palace library. Follow me. I will take you to see the books on the first level. The princess felt proud when she saw the look of astonishment on Alaric's face. All right. Alaric didn't reject her. This was an opportunity to browse the palace library, so how could he miss it? The two elite knights glanced at him with sharp gazes, but they didn't say anything. I think the Imperial Guards don't like me, Irish, Alaric whispered, calling the princess by her name. This made the princess secretly pleased. They had made an agreement to call each other by their names when there was no one else around. Don't mind them. They are not usually like that. But the situation inside the palace is very unstable, so the Imperial Guards are a bit restless. She sighed while shaking her head. I see. Are you not supposed to tell that to outsiders? You are not an outsider. You have the blood of the imperial family running through your veins. The princess snorted unhappily. Alaric no longer provoked her and just quietly followed along. The books in the first level of the library were mostly about information that the public could access, but there were also a few books related to other subjects. Alaric casually grabbed a book. This one was about the different kinds of metals that could be used to make weapons. Books like this were hard to find, but it was only placed on the first level of the palace library. Have you found something you like? The princess asked when she saw him reading the book intently. Alaric closed the book and replied while shaking his head. It is fascinating to see such a wide array of information. It is just a pity that we can only browse the first level. If you want, I can take you there. The person protecting the upper levels usually listens to me, the princess said while looking around, making sure that no one was listening. Alaric's mouth twitched when he saw her acting like this. I do not think that is a good idea, Irish. You might be punished if one of your brother's people saw you bringing an outsider to the upper levels. Irish grabbed his arm unhappily. What are you chickening out for? Just follow me. I promise that no one will know. Without waiting for his response, she pulled him to the stairs leading to the second level. The two elite knights guarding outside the library seemed to have noticed this, but they quickly looked away, acting like they didn't see anything. I have a bad feeling about this. Alaric sighed in his heart. He wanted to pull his arm away, but the prospect of seeing the books in the upper levels made him choose to follow the princess. At the end of the staircase was an old man sitting on a recliner. He was reading a book, but he lowered it when he sensed someone approaching. Alaric used his appraisal and found out that the old man was actually a three-ringed beast soulmaster. Grandpa Randolph. The princess coyly greeted the old man. Alaric felt goosebumps all over his body when he saw her acting so affectionately. This was the first time he saw the unruly princess act in such a manner. Oh, your highness, I haven't seen you in a while. But who is this? The old man named Randolph asked while observing Alaric from head to foot. The princess responded in a cute manner. Grandpa, this guy is the heir of House Silversword, Alaric. He is my friend, and I wanted to bring him here to read a few books. Randolph furrowed his eyebrows upon hearing this. Your Highness, outsiders aren't allowed on this floor. I apologize, but I cannot let him enter without. Grandpa Randolph, please. Irish stared at the old man with a pleading look. Aya, how could you use that move on me, Your Highness? Alaric watched the two in silence. The relationship between the two was similar to that of a grandpa and his granddaughter. Fine. I was sleeping here, so I didn't see you too. But I will wake up in 6 hours, so you better leave by then. Randolph went back to his recliner and pretended to sleep. You are the best, Grandpa Randolph. I promise to bring you some delicious treats the next time I visit, Irish happily said before she grabbed Alaric and dragged him inside the second level. After they left, The old man opened his eyes and muttered in a helpless tone. I can only do this much for you, Your Highness. I can't even follow you outside. Chapter 306. Dominic and the Secret on the Top Floor. Alaric carefully inspected the books on the shelves. Unlike the ones on the first level, the books here had less wear and tear, mostly likely because only the imperial family was allowed to browse through them. These books, aside from the forgotten history of the empire, there are also books about the insights of powerful ancient warriors. Alaric's face turned serious. To a martial arts fanatic, this place was like heaven. What do you think about the books here? The princess beamed when she saw the look of surprise on his face. The palace library is indeed a haven for knowledge. We do not even have these kinds of books in our library. Alaric shook his head. Hearing this, the princess looked around and approached him with a sneaky smile. I can give you a copy of some of the books here. Alaric was interested, but he rejected her offer. That is very tempting, but we have more important matters to take care of. The princess clicked her tongue unhappily. Boring. Other than his curiosity for the knowledge in the upper levels of the palace library, his main reason for following the princess here was to memorize the layout. He believed that this information would come in handy once they began with the rescue operation. In the next 2 hours, the princess brought Alaric to the upper levels, which had 3 floors in total. He casually browsed through the books, but he didn't find something that grabbed his attention. Suddenly, he noticed that there was a staircase leading to another floor. Didn't you say that this is the last level? Then where does that lead to? The princess followed his gaze and her face turned serious all of a sudden. I cannot take you there. She shook her head firmly. That is one of the forbidden places in the palace. Only His Majesty can go there, she explained in a stern voice. Alaric suddenly frowned. He could feel an oppressive aura at the end of the staircase, and it was so powerful that he had to release his mana to shake off the sense of oppression. This feeling, it is even more intense than Galinor's aura. We need to leave, Your Highness. I think there is someone up there who doesn't want to see me here. Beads of sweat trickled down his face. The princess raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? Looking at her baffled face, Alaric realized that he was the only one affected by the aura. This must be a warning for me. Alaric took a deep breath and persuaded the princess to leave with him. However, just as they were about to leave, a series of footsteps suddenly drifted into their ears. Alaric subconsciously paused his steps, while the princess turned around. Lord Dominic? The princess muttered in a trembling voice. You must be the son of that man. You do resemble him. A cold, almost robotic voice echoed in the silent hall. Alaric turned around and looked at the person who had spoken. It was a man with graying hair who looked to be in his mid-40s. His gaze was unfathomable, like that of the abyss, but the one thing that stood out about him was his prosthetic right arm, which was made from some kind of metal. Do you want to use appraisal on the selected target? Yes. No. Yes. Error. The target's power is immeasurable. Alaric was stunned. His appraisal had only failed once since he got it, and it was when he used it on his father, who had just become a mythical knight at that time. Is this person also a mythical knight? Alaric felt a chill running down his spine. He took a deep breath to calm his nerves. He then politely bowed to the man. Greetings, my lord. I am Alaric Silversword, son of Lucas Silversword. He could only hope that the man wouldn't do anything to him. Otherwise, the whole plan that his mother had orchestrated might fall apart. His mind raced as he thought about how he could safely leave this tricky situation. I know. You almost look like him when he was young, the man named Dominic remarked indifferently. He then turned his head to the princess and said, Your Highness, no one is allowed to bring outsiders here, but since this is the first time you made such a mistake, I will let you off this time. The princess, who was usually confident in herself, meekly lowered her head. This will not happen again, Lord Dominic. Dominic waved his hand and muttered in a cold voice. You must leave. Yes, my lord. Hearing this, the princess immediately grabbed Alaric's arm and left with haste. Dominic watched them leave without blinking, and when he could no longer see them, he muttered, Are you sure about this decision, Your Majesty? Once they take Princess Jade from the palace, the Empire of Harun would definitely complain. It might even spark a conflict between our two nations. A soft sigh echoed. Meanwhile, Alaric and the princess were unaware of what was happening on the top level of the library. They rushed down the stairs, afraid that Dominic would punish them. The old man, Randolph, who was dozing off, was taken aback when he saw the princess and Alaric running down the stairs with great haste. Your Highness, why are you in such a hurry? You shouldn't be running while going down the stairs. Grandpa, I will visit you again soon. The princess waved her hand without looking back. Randolph was baffled. Why are they in such a hurry? Suddenly, a thought crossed his mind. They couldn't have discovered the secret on the top floor, right? Sweat trickled down his face when he thought of this. Just then, a dignified voice suddenly drifted into his ears. Randolph, come up here. Hearing this, Randolph immediately rose to his feet. Your Majesty? Without hesitation, he went up the stairs while nervously wiping off the sweat on his face. Chapter 307. The Crown Prince Meets Lucas. Lucas' presence in the capital made the noble houses feel uneasy. Many of them wondered why he suddenly came without warning. What was his motive? What was he trying to achieve? No one could answer these questions, which made everyone feel even more restless. At this moment, the Crown Prince, Exler, was leisurely drinking with his trusted confidants when he received news about this. Interesting, he mumbled with a faint smile. He then looked at the people gathered inside the room and announced, Everyone, why don't we take this chance to visit the Shield of the North? Upon hearing his words, everyone discussed them among themselves. House Silversword was an unstable factor that could tip the balance between the forces of the Crown Prince and the Second Prince. Lucas himself was a formidable warrior who had managed to fight the fifth strongest in the Estanian Dragon leaderboard almost equally, not to mention the powerful warriors under his command. Your Highness, are you planning to recruit him again? Asked Marquis Tyrone, who was seated next to the Crown Prince. He had been to North Pinetown and even had an in-depth conversation with Lucas. After speaking with him, he realized that Lucas had no intention of joining either side. Trying to recruit him would be a useless endeavor. He has every reason to reject the two princes. The old Marquis thought to himself with a deep sigh. Exler smiled faintly and shook his head. Recruit him? I do not plan on doing that. I already know that Lord Lucas will never accept my invitation. The old Marquis raised an eyebrow with a baffled look. Then what is your purpose for visiting him? The Crown Prince chuckled and revealed a cunning look as he replied. How do you think would my brother react if he found out that I went to visit the person who had rejected his invitation? Just thinking about it makes me excited. Ha ha! Looking at the Crown Prince's playful expression, the old Marquis could only shake his head helplessly. Nothing bad will happen, right? He could only pray that no accidents would happen because of this. Meanwhile, in one of the most high-end inns in the capital, Lucas received Alaric's report through a letter sent via messenger pigeon. In the latter's letter, he mentioned the layout of the castle, including the specific locations of the forbidden areas in the palace. Alaric also wrote about his unexpected encounter with the mysterious man named Dominic. When Lucas saw this name in the report, his face turned serious. So he is there, but what is he doing on the top floor of the Imperial Library? Lucas was perplexed by this information. He came up with a bunch of theories, but he had no time to confirm them. Bring Sir William here, he instructed. A moment later, William entered the room and saluted. My lord, you called for me? The old man stared at the Baron with an inquisitive look. Lucas nodded at him and motioned for him to take his seat. I summoned you here to tell you something. HM? Just then, he suddenly discovered a big group entering the premises of the inn. He narrowed his eyes and inspected the people who had arrived using his spiritual perception. To his surprise, it was actually the Crown Prince and his subordinates. What's wrong, my lord? William asked when he noticed the sudden change in his expression. Lucas glanced at him and replied with a shake of his head. Let us continue our conversation later. There is an important guest in the building. Hearing this, William furrowed his eyebrows. "Follow me. We cannot let His Highness wait for too long." Lucas beckoned to him and stepped out of the room. William followed while secretly sweeping his spiritual perception. It was only then that he realized who this important guest was. So it's His Highness the Crown Prince. Lucas went down to the private hall where the Crown Prince was waiting for him. He even booked the entire hall just to see me. What kind of tricks is he playing this time? As soon as Lucas arrived at the private hall, the people together with the Crown Prince immediately greeted him respectfully. "Lord Lucas." "Greetings, my lord." Lucas calmly returned their greeting with a polite nod. "HM? He is also here." He looked at Tyrone, who was standing behind the Crown Prince, and gave him a nod. The old Marquis reciprocated with a faint smile. "Your Highness." Lucas cupped his fists at the prince. Exler stood up and took the initiative to shake hands with Lucas. "It has been a while, Lord Lucas. How have you been?" The two exchanged polite greetings before the Crown Prince motioned for him to sit. "I hope I did not disturb you, my lord." The Crown Prince chuckled while observing Lucas' expression. "Something seems different about him. He looks younger than the last time I saw him." Exler thought to himself. "Not at all, Your Highness." Lucas shook his head. "I am glad to hear that. To tell you the truth, I came here as soon as I heard that you were in the capital. I have so many things that I want to talk about with you, so I took my chance to come here." The Crown Prince spoke before calmly taking a sip of tea. Lucas was confused, but he put on an indifferent expression outwardly. He stopped talking nonsense and asked, "What does Your Highness want to hear from me?" Exler beamed at him and responded with a carefree laugh. "You do not need to be so stiff, my lord. It is nothing particularly serious. I just want to hear your opinion about the recent barbarian sightings in Turtlefort. With the information network he has, he should know why those barbarians are snooping around Turtlefort. Why ask me this?" Lucas stared deeply at him. Chapter 308. New mission triggered by Lucas. What is he trying to accomplish here? Lucas couldn't wrap his head around the Crown Prince's objective. "I am not sure yet, but I think they are looking for the barbarians captured by a certain force," he responded. "Are you talking about the Crimson Tower?" the Crown Prince nonchalantly said. Everyone's heart skipped a beat when they heard the prince's words. They all knew that the Crimson Tower was established by the Grand Duke, so they didn't dare join the conversation. Other than the two princes, the Grand Duke was someone who had the power and authority to ascend to the throne. Although he had joined the second prince's faction, it wouldn't change the fact that he was also qualified to sit in the throne. Lucas nodded indifferently. "That is right." Exler adjusted his sitting posture and smiled lightly. "What do you think is a fitting punishment for the people behind the Crimson Tower?" he casually asked. Hearing this, everyone held their breaths and looked at Lucas, curious to know how he would respond to this controversial question. Under everyone's heated gazes, Lucas finally revealed a hint of emotion on his face. With a deep frown, he replied, "The people who broke the agreement signed by His Majesty should be killed." Everyone, including the prince, gasped at his response. "You mean they deserve to die?" Exler didn't expect to hear this response from him. After all, the Grand Duke's power was something that even he was afraid of. Who would have thought that Lucas was actually unafraid of such an individual? Lucas sneered. "Because of them, the barbarian tribes might choose to ignore the agreement we made. This could lead to a war between our empire and the barbarian tribes." Exler nodded in agreement. "I also think that you are right, but how could we punish those people when the officials are afraid of them? Are you seriously asking me that question?" Lucas was starting to get annoyed with this, and he didn't even bother to conceal the annoyance in his face. "My lord, mind your manners. You are speaking to His Highness, Exler Astania," Marquis Tyrone reminded him with a stern voice. Lucas ignored the old Marquis and kept his gaze on the Crown Prince. "The officials are afraid of them. But does that mean that the imperial family will stay quiet about it?" Exler was stunned. It wasn't just him. Everyone was also flabbergasted. Lucas was actually scolding the Crown Prince in front of everybody. Sweat trickled down their faces as they observed the Crown Prince's expression. To their surprise, Exler wasn't furious. He leaned on his seat and laughed while covering his face. Ha ha ha. Lucas realized what he had done, so he immediately lowered his head. I apologize for my rudeness, Your Highness.
No. No.
Exler waved his hand, still feeling amused about the situation. He had never been scolded like that before, and it made him feel refreshed. He stared at Lucas and muttered, Lord Lucas, if I were to give you the order to punish those criminals in the name of Estania, would you dare to do it? He was the crown prince, and he had the authority to eliminate anyone who had been proven to have committed activities that could threaten the peace of the empire. And now, he was saying that he would give this power to Lucas. This guy. Lucas took a deep breath. He had actually fallen into the crown prince's trap. If he were to reject the crown prince, he would be treated as someone who was all bark and no bite. So he wants to use me to eliminate his brother's solid support. Lucas was silent for a moment, as if he was contemplating how to respond. Maria will definitely scold me for making such a blunder. He sighed deeply before he finally answered. If you give me the resources, I will be your sword to eliminate the plague that is destroying Estania. Everyone hissed at his response. Meanwhile, the crown prince let out a broad grin. You are indeed a loyal subordinate of the empire, Lord Lucas. If only everyone is as righteous as you. Very well. I will give you the troops and the supplies you need. Kill those involved with the Crimson Tower. Looking at the prince's expression, Lucas knew that there was no turning back anymore. This is not part of the plan, but if I have His Highness's direct orders, I will have a more justified reason to bring my troops inside Caldera. He weighed the pros and cons before giving his confirmation. After a moment of silence, he opened his mouth. You have my word, Your Highness. I, Lucas Silversword, will eliminate those criminals. However, there is something that I want in return. Please tell me, my lord. As long as it is not unreasonable, then I will fulfill your conditions. Exler beamed at him. Lucas stared at the people around them with a knowing look. The crown prince understood his intentions, so he signaled for everyone to leave. After everyone has left, Exler said with a faint smile, Now that there is no one around, you can tell me your conditions. In the imperial palace, Alaric was preparing for the next step of their plan when a notification suddenly appeared in front of him. Sir. Mission. Destroy the criminals involved with the Crimson Tower. Mission difficulty, hard. The Crown Prince wishes nothing more than to remove the tumor that is disturbing the peace of Estania. He has called upon Lucas and House Silversword to deliver punishment to these criminals. Mission rewards 1,000 battle points, 100 EXP, 20 stat points. Random trait upgrade card X1. Sir. Alaric was stunned when he saw the mission information. What is going on here? How did I trigger a mission? Is my father related to this? Alaric had some guesses, but he couldn't confirm it now. He closed the science screen with a thought. I will confirm this after I complete my next task. Chapter 309. The time has come. Alaric, it is time to go. The princess' voice drifted into his ears. Alaric turned his head and nodded to Irish. All right, let's go. The princess took him to the top floors of the castle using a secret passage known only to the members of the imperial family and a few of their trusted subordinates. Do not release your mana. There are many powerful warriors here. She reminded him with a stern look. Alaric nodded his head. The closer they got to their destination, the more nervous he felt. I wonder what she looks like. According to Irish, she looks just like me, and we even share the same hair color. While he was immersed in his own thoughts, they soon reached the end of the secret passage, which was a thick iron door with a few ancient locks with different mechanisms. The princess unlocked each one with great ease. Seeing how familiar she was with the mechanisms, Alaric guessed that she had probably used the passage quite a number of times before. Click! The last lock made a clicking sound. There are more Imperial guards on this floor, but they will not do anything unless you... Never mind, just follow me. Explaining this would be useless. The princess pushed the door open, revealing a room filled with old books. The musty smell inside the room reminded Alaric of the abandoned warehouse in their estate where all the unused books and furniture were stored. Seeing his curious gaze, Irish explained, "This used to be your mother's study, but after she had been placed under house arrest, this place had been abandoned. She didn't want anyone to enter this room, so it was left unattended. So it is her study room." Alaric's eyes flashed with complicated emotions as he observed the dusty room. "There are Imperial guards outside, so don't do anything that will attract their attention," the princess warned him. "All right." Alaric absent-mindedly nodded. Upon stepping out of his mother's abandoned study room, a long hallway greeted them. Alaric saw more than 10 Imperial guards standing upright. Each of them was as strong if not stronger than knights, and by his estimates, there were about 14 of them on this hallway alone. Just how many knights do they have in this castle? Alaric furrowed his eyebrows as he quietly followed the princess. The Imperial guards turned their gazes and looked at him deeply. They didn't make a move, but he knew that if he were to make one wrong move, these guys would definitely attack him on the spot. As soon as they passed by everyone, he could feel their heated gazes on his back. They made a few turns before they finally arrived in front of a room guarded by 2 transcendents. These 2 are weaker than William, but they have better equipment, he thought to himself as he inspected the 2 transcendent knights. "Your Highness, we don't allow outsiders inside. You can go in, but this guy must stay here." One of the transcendents spoke in a serious voice. Princess Irish glared at the man and snorted. "This man is a friend of mine. Are you sure that will stop him from entering?" Her words were laced with threats, but the transcendent remained firm. He shook his head and responded, "Your Highness, please understand that we are only doing our job. We don't want to use force, so please don't make things difficult for us." The princess frowned. Just then, a voice suddenly echoed from inside the room. "You 2 owe me a favor. Let them in." The 2 transcendents hesitated upon hearing this, but after almost half a minute of internal struggle, one of them sighed and relented. "Open the door." The other transcendent, a middle-aged man who had a saber tied to his waist, frowned upon hearing this. It looked like he was against the decision, but he gritted his teeth and eventually relented as well. "Fine, but you must hurry. If the others will find out, we might be in trouble." The princess smiled at them. After making sure that no one was nearby, the 2 transcendent knights opened the door for them. The princess eagerly walked in, while Alaric anxiously followed. Upon entering, he saw an array of books placed neatly on the rows of bookshelves that were almost twice his height. Beyond these bookshelves was a white-haired woman whose back was facing them. She seemed to be preparing tea, her movements graceful and elegant. Looking at this unfamiliar back, Alaric felt an unusual sense of closeness that he had never felt before. His heartbeat subconsciously quickened. "So you have come." The woman turned around and looked at him with a faint smile. Her face heavily resembled his own. He didn't even need to undergo some kind of genetic test to know that this woman was his mother. She beckoned to him and said, "Come here and have some tea. I prepared this after I heard of your arrival." Her voice was strangely soothing, like a massage after a long day. Alaric didn't say anything and quietly took his seat. He then looked at the freshly brewed tea and slowly reached out to grab the teacup. Meanwhile, the princess quietly sat on the chair adjacent to him and watched the scene with a light smile. Alaric brought the tea to his mouth. The aroma coming from it was fragrant and refreshing. After taking in the scent, he took a small sip. Gulp. A bitter taste greeted him, but it soon exploded with a mixture of flavors. Sometimes you need to experience bitter hardships before you can enjoy the taste of freedom. An emotional voice drifted into his ears. Alaric jolted when he heard those words. It sounded like she was describing the taste of the tea, but the words also represented her experience. "It is a good tea," he calmly remarked. "I am glad that you like it, my son." Alaric's eyes trembled. He turned his head and looked at the white-haired woman sitting opposite him. He was tongue-tied. He didn't know how to react or respond to the situation. The woman smiled faintly. "You must be shocked right now. A stranger is calling you her son." I understand that it will take some time before you can accept the truth. Seeing you is already enough. I am glad to see you in good health, my son. Jade wanted to approach her son and hug him tightly, but she controlled herself. Alaric lowered his head and took another sip of tea. The explosion of flavors calmed his agitated heart. Just as he was about to say something, an urgent voice suddenly drifted over. I apologize for interrupting your conversation, but you must leave now. A few Imperial guards are coming for an inspection. Hearing this, Alaric sighed and stood up from his seat. Not even 2 minutes had passed, but his first meeting with his mother was already interrupted. You should leave. Those people must be the Grand Duke's subordinates. Jade didn't want them to leave so soon, but there was nothing she could do. The Grand Duke? Huh? Alaric frowned. He had received a mission just a while ago to punish criminals. He guessed that this was related to the Crimson Tower, and the very mastermind behind the creation of this establishment was the Grand Duke. Before leaving, Alaric looked at his birth mother and spoke. Just wait for a while. We will get you out of this place. I promise you that. Jade was momentarily surprised by his words, but after regaining her composure, she felt a wave of warmth. She nodded her head and responded with a faint smile. All right, I will wait here. Alaric stared deeply at her before he turned around and left. Thank you for the tea. Alaric's voice echoed before the door slammed closed. Jade beamed. She had never been this happy since she was locked inside this room. I am sorry, my son, but your mother cannot stay idle. How can I let you guys do all the work? Thinking about this, she took out a coin-sized orb from her desk's drawer and crushed it. The time has come. At this moment, on a quiet street somewhere in Cadera, an old man dressed in servant's clothing was sweeping the pavement while humming a jolly song when the bracelet in his hand suddenly broke. The old man's face abruptly changed when he saw this. He then looked around and quietly walked towards an empty corner. So the time has finally arrived. He mumbled to himself as he disappeared into the dark alleyway. Inside a flower shop, a young and beautiful florist was happily cutting the stems of her flowers when she noticed something. She lowered her head and saw the ring on her finger breaking apart before turning into dust. Her eyes flashed with profound light as he muttered, I have waited for 2 decades and Her Highness has finally called. Similar things happened all over the capital, and soon these individuals headed into the same location. Chapter 310. The Crown Prince's Schemes. After the quick visit to his mother, Alaric bid the princess farewell and headed to the inn where his father was staying. When he arrived, he noticed the unusual atmosphere in the group. What happened while I was away? He raised an eyebrow and beckoned to one of the higher-ranking warriors to ask about the situation. What happened here? The warrior immediately responded with a serious tone. My lord, His Highness, the Crown Prince, came here earlier to discuss something with the Lord Baron. They eventually agreed to. He told Alaric about the Crown Prince's command and how Lucas had accepted it. Hearing this, Alaric furrowed his eyebrows and quickly headed to his father's room to confirm the situation. This is not part of Mom's plan. What is father thinking? Knock, knock, knock. Come in. Alaric pushed the door open and saw Lucas sitting before the coffee table. William was also there, sitting adjacent to him. Seeing that William was around, Alaric thought carefully before he asked his father. My lord, I heard from the others that you have accepted the Crown Prince's orders. What is going on here? If they were to confront the Grand Duke, Lucas would have to reveal his power since Galliner and Warwick weren't around. If that happens, the imperial family would be alerted and might even increase the castle's defenses. Calm down and listen to what I have to say first. Lucas gestured at him to take his seat. Alaric took a deep breath and sat opposite Lucas. Although his father wasn't known for his tactics, he wasn't a complete idiot. He wouldn't do anything that would be disadvantageous for them. Lucas adjusted his sitting posture and looked at his son as he spoke. Initially, our plan was to stealthily rescue your mother, but with the information you provided, doing that would be impossible because of that person in the upper level of the Imperial Library. You see, that person is a mythical knight and he has been at that level for decades. His strength is probably stronger than mine. Alaric frowned upon hearing this. Lucas was right. With the guy named Dominic guarding the imperial castle, rescuing his mother would be impossible without being discovered. I made an agreement with His Highness. Lucas' words made Alaric surprised. You mean to say, His Highness agreed to release your mother if we can eliminate the Grand Duke? Lucas said in a serious voice. Why would he agree with your request? His Highness would face strong opposition if he were to release someone locked up by His Majesty. Alaric couldn't understand why the Crown Prince would accept this ridiculous demand. Lucas leaned on his seat and replied while shaking his head. I don't understand it either. I only tried my luck when I mentioned it to him, but he actually accepted my demand with a smile. Alaric furrowed his eyebrows. The Crown Prince was a cunning man. That was also the reason why the Emperor had chosen him to be his successor. Unlike the second prince who only had strong martial power, Prince Exler was a strategic genius and a wise leader. Now the question is, why did such a man agree with his father's near unreasonable demand? William, who was silent the entire time, suddenly opened his mouth. I think it was a bet. Lucas and Alaric turned their gazes to him. William rubbed his chin and explained why he had said so. Think about it. If we can eliminate the Grand Duke, the second prince would lose his strongest supporter. This would make the Crown Prince's faction have the upper hand in the battle for succession. Moreover, everyone would also think that House Silversword has joined the Crown Prince's faction. As for us, we wouldn't be able to do anything about it if the Crown Prince would do as he had promised and release Princess Jade. Both the father and son were stunned by his words. If it was as he had said, the Crown Prince's schemes were terrifyingly deep. His Highness made a bet, thinking that we would win against the Grand Duke. He is indeed no simple man. William let out a deep sigh. So I have been duped by His Highness? Lucas shook his head with a defeated look. That's not entirely true, my lord. If we can get His Highness military support and provision, winning against the Grand Duke wouldn't be difficult. The only thing that I am worried about is the aftermath of this battle. It could lead into a full-blown civil war between the Crown Prince's and the Second Prince's factions. William responded with a grim look. Alaric's expression was unsightly to behold. The events that happened in his past life had taken a drastic change. He had been using the knowledge of the future to steer everything in his favor. But now that everything had changed, he could only rely on his own power. Let's do it. Alaric showed his firm determination to follow his father's decision. This was probably their best choice to save his mother. Lucas nodded. I will tell you His Highness' plan. Meanwhile, sitting inside his carriage was the Crown Prince, Prince Exler Estania. He was leaning on his seat while looking at the people outside through the window. Your Highness, do you trust them that much? Lucas might be strong, but I don't think he is powerful enough to destroy the Grand Duke. Besides, he only brought one transcendent knight with him. If something goes wrong, the second prince might retaliate and cause a civil war. Tyrone's voice suddenly drifted into his ears. Prince Exler chuckled. Lord Tyrone, do you know why Lucas brought an army here in the capital? Tyrone furrowed his eyebrows. Didn't he bring an army to escort Her Highness? Exler laughed upon hearing his response. No, he brought that army to rescue my aunt, Princess Jade. What? Tyrone's eyes went wide like saucers. Do you think a determined man like him wouldn't be able to defeat the Grand Duke? Exler smirked. Chapter 311. Sherwin and Samaya. A few days later, beneath a mountain outside Cadera, House Silversword and their subordinate houses had temporarily set up camp to wait for the promised military support and provisions. They had been waiting here since yesterday, so everyone was bored out of their minds. Suddenly, everyone felt the ground tremble, so they quickly assembled and prepared for the incoming forces. Are those people the Crown Prince's troops? Alaric asked as he squinted his eyes. Standing next to him, Lucas revealed a look of surprise.
No.
I think they are Her Highness private soldiers. Alaric couldn't believe his words. Are you saying that Irish has a private army of more than 1,000 soldiers? Approaching them was an army of almost the same number as they had. Furthermore, the people leading them didn't seem to be some random slouch either. Using his appraisal, Alaric discovered 2 Transcendent Knights and 1 3-ringed Beast Soulmaster on their side. One of them was someone he had already met before. It was the manager of the mysterious restaurant in Maleton, the woman who had introduced herself as Barbara. Her real name was Linda Barnolay, and from what he knew, she was a subordinate of his cousin, Princess Irish. The other 2 were strangers. The Transcendent Knight was an old man with 2 short spears tied on his back, while the 3-ringed Beast Soulmaster was a beautiful woman who looked to be in her 20s. Other than these 3 experts, the army also had about 15 elite knights. Since when did warriors at this level become so common? Are they really Irish's soldiers? He found it hard to believe that a spoiled princess to possess a private army of this size and caliber. Including Linda Barnolay, all 3 of them are experts who are not recorded in the Estanian Dragon leaderboard. Lucas' voice drifted into his ears. Alaric furrowed his eyebrows. He was already aware that there were top experts in the Empire who had chosen to remain unknown. He had seen a few of them in his past life when he had joined the Crown Prince's faction. At this moment, the 1,000-man army halted in front of their camp. Their 3 commanders stepped forward and gave Lucas a salute. "We have come to support you, my lord." Lucas smiled faintly and cupped his fists in gratitude. "Thank you for coming to our aid. Please follow me inside for a cup of tea. My people will help your troops set up their tents." "Thank you for the invitation, my lord. We will follow your arrangements." The old Transcendent Knight responded respectfully. Lucas brought them to his tent and asked one of his subordinates to prepare tea for them. "You may sit," he told the 3. Upon taking their seats, Linda Barnolay opened her mouth. "My lord, please allow me to make the introductions. This lady right here is Samaya. She is a 3-ringed Beast Soulmaster." While she was introducing the beautiful woman named Samaya, Alaric carefully checked her attributes using his appraisal. Samaya, 3-ringed Beast Soulmaster EXP. 119/5000. Potential A. Integrated Monster Traits. Ultimate Heal S. Saintism A. Solid Protection B. Traits. Singing S. Calligraphy S. Dancing S. Painting A. Persuasion A. Business Management A. Horseback Riding B. Archery D. Strength 190. Stamina 199. Agility 170. Vitality 240. Endurance 180.
Mana 387.
Most of her attributes were definitely lacking for someone at her level, but she had promising integrated monster traits. Based on his knowledge, her Saintism was a skill that boosted her allies' stamina and endurance. It was a skill that would be crucial in a large-scale battle. As for Ultimate Heal, it was an ability that could heal the allies in her targeted area. With these 2 powerful support abilities, the soldiers on their side would have nothing to worry about fighting recklessly. At this moment, Linda introduced the old Transcendent Knight. "This gentleman is our commander, Sherwin." Alaric immediately inspected the old man's attributes. Sherwin, Transcendent Knight, EXP. 4101/5000. Potential B. Traits. Spear Mastery S. Close Combat S. Horseback Riding A. Hunting A. Tracking A. Intimidation B. Danger Perception C. Intuition C. Strength 301. Stamina 275. Agility 340. Vitality 299. Endurance 292.
Mana 284.
This old guy doesn't look much, but he is also a formidable fighter. His raw attributes alone are already on par with Warwick's. Alaric thought to himself after inspecting the old man's attributes through his appraisal. "With the 3 of you on our side, things will be a lot easier," Lucas remarked with a faint smile, but his face suddenly turned serious as he asked, "But are you really someone under Her Highness Irish?" I will answer this question. The old man, Sherwin, volunteered. Everyone glanced at him, waiting for him to explain everything. Sherwin cleared his throat and said, Miss Linda is the only one working for Her Highness. As for me and Miss Samaya, we are subordinates of Princess Jade. The 1,000-man army we brought is also the private army that she had secretly nurtured. Hearing this, everyone from Lucas' side was stunned. They all knew that Princess Jade had been in house arrest for close to 2 decades. They found it hard to believe that she was able to nurture an army of this size given her situation. Lucas sighed and let out a wry smile. With a shake of his head, he said, It seems like my guess was right. You two are indeed her subordinates. So they are mother's people. Alaric was stunned. He had underestimated his mother's abilities. To think that she actually managed to establish such a formidable army despite being under house arrest. The group discussed for another 30 minutes when a warrior came in to give an urgent report to Lucas. My lord, another army is approaching. They bear no flags, so our troops are feeling uneasy. Hearing this, everyone inside the room became serious. Meanwhile, Lucas stood up from his seat and said, Let's go and see who they are. Yes, my lord. Chapter 312. Black Lion Corps Commander, Rendon. Those uniforms and armor. Alaric let out a smile when he saw the approaching army's attire. How could he forget about it when he wore the same thing in his past life? The standard black steel armor with a red cape. They are definitely part of His Highness private troops, the Black Lion Corps. Alaric thought to himself after confirming their identity. From his knowledge, the Crown Prince had secretly nurtured over 30,000 soldiers who were only loyal to him. Alaric had also become an honorary member of the Black Lion Corps for his contributions to the Crown Prince's faction. Thinking about this, he immediately informed everyone not to worry. Relax, everyone. They are His Highness troops, he shouted, his words making the tension disappear. He then looked at the approaching army and made a rough estimate of their numbers. There are about 2,000 soldiers. Based on the current timeline, His Highness should have around 10,000 warriors in his Black Lion Corps. This means that this is a fifth of his private troops. While he was quietly observing the Black Lion Corps, 4 cavalrymen stepped forward and cupped their fists to Lucas. Greetings, Lord Lucas. One of the 4, a muscular warrior who had a gigantic axe strapped on his back, introduced himself with an indifferent tone. I am Rendon, the commander of the 3rd Brigade of the Black Lion Corps. These 3 are my deputies. Alaric was stunned to see this person. He actually sent Rendon. In his past life, Rendon was the 2nd strongest warrior in the Crown Prince's faction. He quickly used his appraisal to check the man's attributes. Rendon, Transcendent Knight, EXP 4275/5000. Potential A. Traits: Pain Tolerance, S. Overwhelming Strength, S. Axe Mastery, S. Close Combat, S. Horseback Riding, S. Hunting, S. Tracking, A. Archery, B. Danger Perception, C. Intuition, C. Strength, 429. Stamina, 286. Agility, 255. Vitality, 371. Endurance, 401.
Mana, 199.
Oh my! To think that His Highness would actually send the current ranked 14th in the Estanian Dragon leaderboard for this mission. I am honored. Lucas laughed heartily as he shook hands with Rendon, who had jumped off his horse. Alaric wasn't surprised to hear this. In his past life, Rendon had replaced the inactive Amari Anton and took his spot to become the top 6 in the Estanian Dragon leaderboard. After a few rounds of pleasantries, Lucas brought the commanders of the Black Lion Corps to his tent for a discussion. Everyone gave a short introduction of themselves to familiarize themselves with each other. It was important to know their allies' abilities, so this was a necessary step before they went into the details of the mission. After almost an hour of introductions, Lucas finally inserted the main topic. I have received His Highness's directives. Listen carefully as I explain his plans. Lucas told them about the Crown Prince's plan, which he received through a letter. Everyone was a commander, so they were quick to understand the general idea. If there are any points that you did not understand, you can ask me now, Lucas said while observing everyone one by one. No one spoke, so he decided to end the meeting. That is all that you need to know. For now, we should let our warriors familiarize themselves with each other to prevent them from accidentally attacking their allies once the battle begins. Yes, sir. Everyone agreed with his instructions. After a few more reminders, Lucas dismissed the commanders. He then slumped into his seat and turned his head to Alaric. What do you think, son? Can we defeat the Grand Duke without me needing to get involved? He asked with his arms crossed. Hearing this, Alaric thought for a moment. He had 2 missions from the system which were related to the Crown Prince's orders. One was hard-rated while the other was extreme-rated. Assuming based on his recent experience, he could say that the task to destroy the Grand Duke was highly dangerous. It is hard to say. We have 8 transcendents on our side, but we do not know for sure how many experts our enemy has. The information we have gathered about the Grand Duke might not be accurate. Moreover, the second prince might send reinforcements to the Grand Duke once he gets wind of this. Alaric responded with a grave look. Lucas' expression became solemn upon hearing his words. So I still have to show my hand, he muttered with a sigh. Alaric stared deeply at his father and said, Dad, we must save as many warriors as we can. We cannot let them die when we have the strength to protect them. Your strength will be exposed anyway. It is just a matter of time. Taken aback, Lucas took a deep breath and nodded his head. All right. Later that day, Alaric wasn't able to bring his exercise equipment, so he could only polish his sword skills to kill time. Alaric's Silver Sword, Elite Knight, EXP. 405. 435/1000. Potential A.
Trait, hors ce bacridin, C. Swordsmanship, SSS. Close combat, C. Archerie, E. Hunting, E. Tracking, D. Sixth Sense, D. Monster Affinity, D. Mana Gathering, C. Appraisal, B.
Strength, 200. Stamina, 200. Agility, 200. Vitality, 195. Endurance, 198.
Mana, 250.
Battle points, 6,500. 6,700. Stat points, 70. Requirements for the next advancement, 1,000 EXP, 250 in all attributes, and 10,000 battle points. He managed to upgrade his Sixth Sense to D-grade after using the random trait upgrade card he got from the last mission. This trait was very useful and it helped him save his life during crucial moments. Now that it has been upgraded, Alaric felt more confident about his survivability. Now that I think about it, this should be the perfect time to use my stat points. Alaric thought to himself. In a large-scale battle, stamina is important, so I should max this out first. Stamina, 200, 250. After using 50 stat points on his stamina, he was now left with 20 stat points. Alaric thought for a moment before making a decision. Let's go with this. Chapter 313. The Traitor. Agility, 200, 220. Being fast would help me evade during critical situations. Alaric inspected his attributes and was content with the improvements he made. Now that he had maxed out his stamina, he wouldn't easily tire out in prolonged battles. Suddenly, he sensed some movements behind him because of his Sixth Sense trait. Who goes there? He frowned as he turned around. There is no need to be alarmed, my lord. It's me. A squinty-eyed warrior dressed in black battle armor revealed himself. It was one of Rendon's deputies, a man named Stephen. He was a transcendent knight, one who wasn't recorded in the Estanian Dragon leaderboard. Alaric didn't relax his guard upon seeing that it was him. So it's Sir Stephen. How can I help you? Alaric put on a relaxed smile, but he was on full alert. This was because this man was someone he was familiar with. In his past life, Stephen would betray the Crown Prince and defect to the Second Prince's faction. He had even reported their secret camps, which caused significant losses on the Crown Prince's army. It was also because of this man that Alaric fell into battle. Stephen had planned an ambush at their military encampment which took them by surprise. Alaric was killed in that battle. Recalling that moment, Alaric's eyes flashed with rage, but he quickly concealed it. This snake! I want to crush his skull. Alaric could barely control his anger, which was threatening to burst out at any moment. He just couldn't stomach the face which caused the deaths of his comrades and also his demise. Stephen didn't seem to notice the unusual reaction. He smiled faintly as he approached Alaric. "My lord, I apologize for disturbing your sword training. I was fascinated with your technique, so I couldn't help myself but observe at a closer distance." Hearing this, Alaric chuckled, but he was seething rage deep inside. "You don't have to apologize, Sir Stephen. If you want, I can show you more." Stephen waved his hand and shook his head with a look of embarrassment. "How could I trouble you, my lord? It's just a small matter. There is no need to be embarrassed." Alaric insisted. Seeing that he wouldn't take no for an answer, Stephen finally relented. "All right, please show me your sword techniques, my lord." When he said this, he failed to hide the contempt in his eyes. He was quick to hide it, but Alaric had already seen through his farce. "If I didn't know about the future, I would have fallen for your acting." Alaric showed off some of his moves, but he only displayed his most common techniques. However, this common technique made Stephen flabbergasted. He was also a swordsman, and Alaric's technique had already surpassed his own understanding of the sword. No wonder others call him a swordsmanship prodigy. So they weren't just baseless rumors after all. Stephen's expression turned serious after Alaric displayed his techniques. In just that one quick session, he even felt that he had comprehended something. "I thought that Lucas was the only one we need to be careful of in the north. Who would have thought his son is also a dangerous person? I need to report this to the second prince. Excellent sword skills. You have truly opened my eyes, my lord. I learned a lot from your demonstration." Stephen beamed at him. "Ha! You flatter me, sir." Alaric chuckled. "This guy is only second to my uncle when it comes to acting." He thought to himself, "I need to leave now, my lord. I still have things to do. Thank you for showing me your sword techniques." Stephen excused himself. Alaric didn't force him to stay and nodded. "No problem. I hope you can show me your techniques next time, sir," he jokingly said. "Of course." Stephen didn't linger and left in a hurry. Looking at his strange behavior, Alaric guessed that Stephen was most likely on the second prince's side by now. This guy must have purposely chosen to stay in the crown prince's faction to act as a spy for the second prince. Should I report him to the crown prince? Alaric furrowed his eyebrows. Stephen was never discovered in his past life. When his betrayal was revealed, it was already too late. "I will not let you succeed this time, you damnable bastard." He temporarily set aside the thought of reporting Stephen. He didn't have evidence of the man's betrayal, so it would only backfire on him if he reported him now. "I should make a name list of all the spies hidden in the crown prince's faction, but how should I give it to his highness without making him suspicious?" Alaric rubbed his temples. Thinking back, it was because of those traitorous bastards that the crown prince's faction suffered innumerable losses. There is still plenty of time before they would make a move. I just need to keep an eye on them and send the name list to his highness when the time is right. Alaric sorted his thoughts and temporarily put the matter aside. A moment later, he resumed his sword training. Later that midnight, in the Grand Duke's mansion, a man who seemed to be in his late 50s unrolled a letter he had recently received. This was sent by one of our spies. His expression changed drastically when he read the contents of the letter. "They want to attack me?" He burned the letter furiously. "So you want to kill your uncle using Lucas? If you think that you can defeat me so easily, then I will let you know how terribly wrong you are, your highness." His rage was evident in his voice. He took a deep breath to calm down before he summoned his right-hand man. A few minutes later, a man dressed in shiny steel armor kneeled before him. "My lord, I await your command. Recall our troops and have them ready for battle." Hearing this, the man in shiny steel armor was momentarily surprised. "Yes, my lord." Chapter 314. Lucas reveals his power. A few days later, the loud war drums suddenly reverberated, awakening the soldiers who were still sleeping. Everyone hurriedly got up to put on their armor and to prepare their equipment. At this moment, Alaric had already assembled his troops with the rest of the battalions. "It is about time," Alaric thought as he looked at Lucas, who was standing in front of the gathered soldiers. After everyone had gathered, the expressionless Lucas jumped onto his mount and shouted in a booming voice, "Let us depart at once." "Yes, my lord," the soldiers responded sonorously. With more than 4,000 troops marching, the ground shook vigorously. Their intimidating presence scared monsters and humans alike, allowing the army a peaceful journey with no obstacles in their path. The Grand Duke's estate was located in a vast territory sitting next to the capital, Grataja. Due to its abundant resources and large population, it could already rival the major cities in the empire. However, unlike other cities which were jointly controlled by a few noble houses, Grataja was solely controlled by the Grand Duke. Grataja was just a small village that was once part of Cadera, but it had grown into a massive territory with considerable wealth and power. The person who had made this possible was the Grand Duke, Lloyd Estania. After almost half a day of marching, the army finally saw the towering walls of Grataja. Lucas raised his hand and observed the defenses of the territory. "They are well prepared. How did they know that we would attack today?" He could see ballistas and mana cannons atop the walls. There were also hundreds of archers ready to rain them with arrows. Alaric was right. It seems like what he said about there being a traitor is true, but who could it be? Is it one of the commanders sent to help us? Thinking about this, he turned his head and swept his gaze at the transcendence behind him. "My lord, please give us the command. We will attack the gates as soon as you give the instructions." Rendon spoke with unshakable confidence. Hearing this, Lucas shook his head. With the enemy this prepared, attacking the gates would only result in heavy casualties. "Calm down, Sir Rendon. As you can see, the enemies are more prepared than we have thought. We need to think of a way to besiege the gates without suffering heavy losses." Rendon realized his mistake and lowered his head. "You are wise, my lord." Lucas turned his gaze back to the walls while racking his brain. "Now, how should we deal with this?" While he was pondering his options, a warrior came to his side and reported, "My lord, Lord Alaric wishes to speak with you." Lucas' eyes lit up when he heard this. "Bring him here." The warrior left and returned a moment later with Alaric. Alaric saluted and opened his mouth. "My lord, we should follow His Highness' plan." He had already anticipated this, so he formulated a follow-up strategy for this very situation. Lucas quietly listened while recalling the strategies written in the Crown Prince's letter. What Alaric had said was indeed recorded in the letter. However, if we follow the plan, I will have to... I see. I understand now. Realization dawned on him. It was as if he had found the final piece of a puzzle. Lucas no longer hesitated. He put on his helmet and issued a command. "I will destroy the gates by myself." Once the gates are destroyed, everyone must charge at once. They were stunned upon hearing this. They were aware that Lucas was formidable, but to destroy the gates of Grataja on his own? They felt that it was impossible. Lucas ignored their baffled gazes. He didn't wait for them to respond and urged his mount to charge. "Hiya! Hiya! Is he really planning to destroy the gates on his own?" The Transcendents hesitated as they watched their commander rush towards the gates by himself. Excluding the warriors of House Silversword, no one was aware of Lucas' true power. Just then, a heavy tyrannical aura descended like a storm. What is this immense power? This is not something a transcendent knight could wield. While everyone was reeling in shock, Rendon exclaimed in disbelief, "Lord Lucas is a mythical knight." As soon as his words fell into their ears, the soldiers were in an uproar. Mythical knights were beings of unrivaled strength. They have the power to dictate the life and death of an empire. Stephen almost shat his pants when he heard this. Mythical knight. He is actually a mythical knight. His eyes shook with terror. The reason he defected to the second prince's faction was because he had seen Prince Giovanni's power. He was also supported by many powerhouses and great families. However, a single mythical knight was enough to destroy those people. Luckily, I haven't left the Crown Prince's faction yet. No one should have discovered my identity, so everything should be fine. He tried to convince himself, but there was this uneasy feeling gnawing at him. Suddenly, Lucas raised his sword, a large lump of metal that was taller than an adult male. With a seemingly casual strike, he brought upon tremendous force that caused a violent gust of wind that tore through the reinforced gates. Boom! The ground trembled as if a high-magnitude earthquake had struck the land. Due to the immense power released by Lucas, a big portion of the walls fell apart along with its reinforced gates that were supposed to be impregnable. "Stop gawking and charge with me while the enemies are still distracted," Rendon bellowed to the stunned troops. He then squeezed his legs and urged his horse to rush out. His words broke everyone from their stupor. They then raised their weapons and followed him while issuing loud battle cries. So this is the strength of a mythical knight. With a flabbergasted face, Alaric stared at the huge gap created by Lucas' attack. Chapter 315. Heavy atmosphere in the Grand Duke's mansion. With the archers atop the wall in an utter state of confusion, Rendon took the opportunity to lead the troops into advancing inside the territory. The enemies were already late to react, and by the time they launched their countermeasures, the army had already entered Grataja. "Don't waste this chance. Kill everyone who resists," Rendon shouted as he brandished his axe. Whoosh! With one swing, he took the lives of 5 enemy soldiers. His deputies didn't want to be outdone. They launched themselves in the enemy formation, breaching past their defenses to create a path for their troops. On the other hand, Princess Jade's private troops weren't as aggressive as them. They attacked using battle formations, and they also made use of the momentum to thoroughly destroy the enemy's defenses. Meanwhile, the warriors of House Silversword and their subordinate houses didn't expend much of their strength. They chose to conserve their mana for the next battles. In the midst of this chaos, Alaric led his group to clean up the enemies who had slipped through the net. "Do not use your mana. Conserve your energy," Alaric shouted, reminding his subordinates not to be careless. Entering Grataja was just the first step of their plan. They still had to go through numerous obstacles before they could reach the Grand Duke's estate, so it was necessary to be frugal with their mana consumption. In less than half an hour, the main gates of Grataja fell apart with more than half of their soldiers dead and critically injured. The remaining warriors surrendered and had their mana sealed. They were then sent to a temporary prison to prevent them from regrouping with the Grand Duke's forces. "Lord Venerable, we have secured the main gate. What are your orders?" Rendon saluted Lucas with a respectful gaze. He might be an expert in the Estanian Dragon leaderboard, but in front of a mythical knight, he was no different than a bug. Facing an expert at this level, he could only choose to lower his pride. Lucas nodded indifferently. He could sense the sudden change in everyone's attitude. Just recently, some of them still showed a hint of defiance, but now, everyone readily complied without even uttering a word of complaint. Only the strong will be respected. That is the ultimate truth. Lucas sighed inwardly. He then made a hand gesture and shouted, "Gather the troops. We will advance immediately." Hearing his words, everyone responded in unison. "Yes, Lord Venerable." "Venerable? Huh? That doesn't sound so bad to hear." He grinned. Inside the Grand Duke's mansion, a heavy atmosphere filled the air. Everyone had received word that Lucas was a mythical knight. At first, some were still skeptical and they believed that it was only a ploy to confuse them. However, the news about the collapse of the main gate made them realize that this seemingly far-fetched information might be true. "My lord, the atmosphere is not good. The others might betray us if we do not give them a satisfactory explanation," whispered an old servant to the Grand Duke, Lloyd Estania. Lloyd's expression was unsightly to behold. Damn! Since when did he become a mythical knight? Damn it! The Grand Duke was panicking deep inside, but he had to remain calm in front of his subordinates. Showing even a hint of fear would only cause unrest among his followers. He took a deep breath to calm his anxious heart. He then scanned the faces of the gathered crowd. All these people were his trusted confidants. They had helped him build Grataja to what it was now. However, these once confident and arrogant people were now shaking in fear. He rubbed his temples as he opened his mouth. Immediately send word to His Highness and inform him of the situation. Fighting an army led by a mythical knight would only result in the destruction of the warriors he had painstakingly nurtured. His best course of action was to get the second prince to intervene and use his authority as an heir to the crown to stop the advancing enemies. Yes, my lord. This is not enough. It will take some time before His Highness will arrive. I must buy some time, but how? Damn. Lloyd cursed in his mind, feeling more agitated the more he thought about the situation. My lord, how about we surrender? I don't think Lucas will kill us if we... Lloyd glared at the man, making him swallow back the words he was about to say. Surrender? Are you insane? How dare you tell me to surrender? He slammed his hand into the armrest of his seat, breaking it into smithereens. He couldn't stomach the thought of surrendering to a countryside baron. His pride couldn't allow such a slight to his reputation. And my lord, please reconsider it. We are facing a powerful entity here, one whose strength could easily decimate an army of thousands. Stubbornly resisting against a powerhouse of that level would be a foolish choice. For the sake of our people's safety, I hope you make the right decision, suggested an old man who was a senior official of Grataja. Lloyd almost flew into rage, but he held back his fury. Releasing it on his subordinates would only make him look weak, so he repressed his anger and replied in a cold voice. If you want to surrender, then please step out of my mansion. I have no need for cowards. The old official furrowed his eyebrows upon hearing his words. He then stood up and sighed while shaking his head. I'm sorry, my lord. He was about to leave when Lloyd suddenly appeared next to him and stabbed him with a sword. KHSHK. You! The old official was an elite knight, so didn't die immediately. He stared deeply at Lloyd and muttered, My lord, I followed you because I thought that you would help us turn Grataja into a paradise. You have done well in the past few decades, so why did you have to involve yourself with the battle for succession? Chapter 316. There is no need for unnecessary bloodshed. Blood leaked out of the old man's body, making his face turn pale. However, his eyes remained firm as he stared deeply at the Grand Duke. Looking at the old official's unwavering spirit, everyone couldn't help but feel emotional. They recalled the sacrifices they made to make Grataja into what it was now. My lord, I also think that we should surrender. We can minimize our losses by doing so. This is the only way to prevent more bloodshed, another official stated. Lloyd's expression darkened. You spineless bastards! How dare you suggest something so ridiculous? We still have His Highness. We only need to hold on until he arrives. One of the Grand Duke's diehard supporters lashed out. A rift was formed among the Grand Duke's followers. They quarreled and exchanged derogatory remarks, making the whole place a total mess. Silence! Lloyd snapped out, his voice shaking in fury. Everyone shut their mouths when they sensed the Grand Duke's overwhelming aura. Send our troops and tell them to stop the invaders at all costs, even if it means their deaths, he shouted with a flurry of his sleeve. The old official who had opposed him earlier wanted to say something, but the Grand Duke suddenly unleashed all his aura upon him, making him unable to breathe. The old official fell off his chair, struggling to breathe. A few people wanted to help him, but they were afraid to face the Grand Duke's wrath, so they chose to look away. What are you waiting for? Pass my instructions immediately, the Grand Duke roared. Why, yes, my lord. Everyone quickly left to deliver his message to the troops. After everyone cleared the meeting room, the gloomy-faced Lloyd punched the wall. Bang! The thick concrete mixed with other durable materials broke apart, leaving a huge hole in the wall. Lucas Silversword. If you want to kill, then I will drag you to hell with me. Meanwhile, Lucas' troops faced another resistance from Grataja's armed guards. They were the elites of the territory tasked to protect the land. Unlike the garrison guards who had protected the main gate, these warriors were battle-hardened. My lord, they seem to be the elite guards of Grataja. How should we deal with them? Rendon asked in a low voice. Lucas surveyed the enemy formation. They also had Transcendence on their side, but they were still lacking compared to his troops, which had top experts like Rendon and Sherwin. Lucas didn't respond immediately. He was the commander, so he had to make the final call. They are citizens of Estania. Must I really kill them? He hesitated. No, there is no need to kill more innocent people. Only the Grand Duke must pay for his crimes. Thinking about this, he said, there is no need for meaningless bloodshed. I will take care of this. Stay here and wait for my command. Rendon lowered his head and didn't say anything. After making his decision, Lucas slowly approached the enemies. His eyes were terrifyingly calm. Trespassers, leave our territory at once, shouted the commander of Grataja's armed guards, a warrior at the Transcendent Realm. However, his warning didn't faze the expressionless Lucas. He pulled the reins, signaling his horse to stop. He then shouted, the Grand Duke, Lloyd Estania, broke the agreement we made with the barbarian tribes. For the sake of fulfilling his twisted desires, he kidnapped barbarians and other helpless victims and auctioned them to an illegal establishment he had created. For the sake of this evil man, do you truly wish to wield your weapons against me? The soldiers of Grataja waved upon hearing his words. They had already heard of rumors about the events that happened in Copperglade. Initially, they all thought that it was ridiculous. No one wanted to believe it, but the sudden attack on Grataja was clearly aimed at the Grand Duke, which made them recall those rumors. Did the Grand Duke really kidnap the barbarians? Did he really establish the Crimson Tower? Is it worth it to serve such an unscrupulous man? While they were hesitating, Lucas' voice drifted into their ears. We are warriors of Estania, and it is our duty to protect the people. Although we are divided into several territories, we share the same origin. We have a common goal to defend our empire. However, the man you serve caused us to be misunderstood by the barbarian tribes. Because of his greed, Estania might once again be engulfed in the flames of war. Is that the kind of man that you wish to serve? Lucas revealed his mighty aura after saying those words, but he didn't use it to oppress the warriors. He just displayed his unrivaled strength to tell them that he could kill them if he wanted to. He is forcing us to make a choice. The commander of Grataja's armed guards shivered when he sensed Lucas' aura. There is no mistake. He is a mythical knight. My lord, we will follow your command. Just give us the word. A voice echoed in his ears. It came from a young warrior he had carefully trained. He was a promising talent with great dreams. Looking at the young warrior's face, the commander of Grataja's armed guards sighed. Many promising youths will die if I choose to fight the enemies, but I have already sworn an oath to the Grand Duke. He fell into a dilemma. Tension filled the air as everyone waited for the commander's decision. After what seemed to be an eternity, the commander finally opened his mouth. Lord Lucas, I will exchange my life for the safety of my subordinates and the residents of the territory. Everyone was stunned by his decision. Lucas glanced at the loyal man. I accept your request, but will they obey a dead commander? The man beamed. He then shouted to his troops. Warriors of Grataja, heed my call. You must surrender immediately. Hearing his words, the soldiers of Grataja responded emotionally. Yes, Lord Commander. Lucas revealed a look of interest. What is your name? Chapter 317. Samaya's remarkable healing ability. Alvin, commander of Grataja's armed guards. Alvin proudly replied. He then took one last glance at his troops before he unsheathed his sword and aimed it at his heart. Brothers, you must protect our people. Let us meet again in the kingdom of Aru. He shouted before pushing his sword into his heart. KHSHK. Lord Commander. My lord. Lord Alvin. The warriors of Grataja cried out in shock and disbelief. They wanted to help Alvin, but he prevented them from getting close using his mana. Step back. I must deliver my end of the deal. Blood leaked out from the corner of Alvin's lips. The warriors could only cry as they watched their commander sacrifice himself for the sake of protecting them. Whoosh! They belatedly discovered the unfamiliar figure who had stepped inside the invisible force field created by Alvin's mana. How did he get in? I did not even sense his presence. Alvin stared at Lucas in shock. You could have chosen to surrender together with your people. Why die for the Grand Duke? Lucas asked while staring deeply at Alvin, who was now on his knees, slowly losing his consciousness. Alvin grinned at his words. I swore an oath. I am only fulfilling that promise. He spoke with great difficulty. Lucas shook his head and muttered with regret. What a pity! Those were the last words Alvin heard before he collapsed. Looking at the unconscious warrior beneath his feet, Lucas frowned as a thought appeared in his mind. His heart is still beating. A transcendent knight like him wouldn't die so easily. Should I save him? He could hear the cries and wails of the warriors of Grataja. They were genuinely sad to witness their commander's final moments. Only a respected individual would evoke this kind of emotion from his people. While Lucas was hesitating, he suddenly heard the sound of a galloping horse. He lifted his head and saw Alaric approaching at lightning speed. Alaric, my lord, we must save that man, Alaric shouted with an urgent look. Hearing this, Lucas was baffled, but his son's words gave him the final push to make his decision. With a wave of his hand, he sent a stream of mana into the dying Alvin. He then slowly pulled out the sword that stabbed his heart. What are you doing? The warriors of Grataja were alarmed when they saw his actions. One observant fellow noticed what he was doing and stopped his comrades from making a commotion. Wait! He is helping the Lord Commander. Everyone settled down when they heard this. Lucas ignored them and focused his attention on protecting Alvin's heart. He has lost a lot of blood and his heart is also damaged. My mana can only temporarily stop the bleeding. We need someone with a strong healing ability to restore his heart. Lucas thought after seeing Alvin's condition through his spiritual perception. My lord, I brought Miss Samaya with me. She has a powerful healing ability. Alaric's voice drifted into his ears. Lucas was delighted. He beckoned to Samaya and told her, his life is in your hands, Miss Samaya. I will do my best, my lord. Samaya nodded with a serious expression. She then got down and activated one of her integrated monster traits, Ultimate Heal. It was an ability that she had gotten from a rare spirit monster called Forest Fairy. This ability wasn't like the common healing skills, which could only heal minor wounds and internal bleeding. With enough mana and some natural elixirs, she could even help someone regrow a lost limb. Samaya carefully imbued her mana into the wound. Golden light emerged from her hand and seeped into Alvin's damaged heart. Looking at her focused gaze, everyone watched with great anticipation. Standing behind her, Alaric quietly observed her movements. With this level of healing, she might be able to help our warriors who had lost their limbs. He was fascinated by her remarkable healing ability. It's done. Samaya heaved a sigh of relief as she wiped off the sweat on her beautiful face. He just needs to get some rest. Once he has recovered the blood he lost, he should be able to wake up by then, she explained with a gentle smile. The warriors were smitten by her charming smile. My lady, are you married by any chance? No, how many days would it take until Lord Commander would regain consciousness? Someone asked with a red face. Samaya glanced at the man who had spoken and replied, it will depend on him, but with the constitution of a transcendent knight, he should wake up in 2 or 3 days. That's good to hear. By the way, do you have a boyfriend? Samaya ignored the infatuated men and stood behind Alaric. Sensing the sharp gazes of the warriors, Alaric cursed in his mind. A bunch of simps. He cleared his throat and said, if you want your commander to recover quickly, I suggest that you bring him somewhere comfortable. Hearing this, the warriors no longer lingered. They took the unconscious Alvin and carefully carried him away. Before leaving, they bowed to Lucas to convey their gratitude. Looking at the retreating soldiers, Lucas asked, why did you want to save him? Alaric knew that it was a question meant for him, so he replied with a faint smile. I just thought that he is worth saving. In his past life, Alvin was one of the most powerful generals under the Second Prince's command. He was still an unknown warrior when he first stepped into the battlefield, but after multiple victories, he had taken a spot in the Estanian Dragon leaderboard. Lucas raised an eyebrow at his casual response, but he didn't ask further. He had also thought of saving the man for his strong character. There is no time to waste. Inform the troops to march, he instructed with a stern voice. I obey your commands. Alaric smiled as he lowered his head. Chapter 318 Thomas. In the Grand Duke's mansion, Lloyd Estania received the news about the soldiers' decision to surrender. What did you say? He flew into rage and he almost killed the messenger on impulse. The messenger didn't dare raise his head. He cowered under Lloyd's terrifying aura as he replied in a shaking voice. My lord, Lucas' army is approaching the estate as we speak. Lloyd felt a sense of unease. What about the preparations on Thomas's side? He asked while concealing his agitation. The messenger quickly responded. Sir Thomas is awaiting the arrival of Lucas' troops. The soldiers under him are also prepared to fight. Hearing this, Lloyd was a bit relieved. Thomas was a transcendent knight who had sworn allegiance to him a long time ago. He was also the current 25th in the Estanian Dragon leaderboard. Thomas should be able to buy me enough time until reinforcements from His Highness' side will arrive. Lloyd narrowed his eyes as he stared at the horizon. The sky was bright, but he felt that there was a gloomy cloud casting over him. I do not like this one bit. Should I escape? The thought crossed his mind, but he quickly quashed the idea. He didn't want to be remembered as the man who had abandoned his territory to save his own skin. Suddenly, another messenger arrived bearing urgent news. My lord, there is word from His Highness, he exclaimed. Lloyd was pleasantly surprised to hear this. What did he say? I didn't dare read the letter, my lord. Here is the message he sent. The man presented the letter sent by the second prince. It still bore the seal which signified that it hadn't been tampered with. Lloyd immediately removed the seal and opened the letter. Upon reading the contents, his face took an abrupt change. No way. Is that bastard planning to abandon me after getting all those benefits? Giovanni, you ungrateful bastard. The Grand Duke tore the letter and burned it with his mana. His sudden outburst of fury scared the two messengers. They didn't even dare utter a word, afraid that they would be on the receiving end of his wrath. Lord Venerable, according to our scouts, Thomas, is guarding the outer walls of the Grand Duke's estate. Rendon reported with a stern look. Thomas might be ranked lower than him in the Estanian Dragon leaderboard, but he had never fought with the man before, so he didn't know what kind of hidden trump cards he had. Lucas didn't give much of a reaction and just asked with a calm tone. How many soldiers does he have? According to our scouts, there are about 1,000 of them atop the outer walls of the Grand Duke's estate. They also have ballistas, mana cannons, and catapults. There will be heavy casualties if we attack them head-on. Rendon wasn't worried about himself, but his subordinates would be vulnerable to the enemy's artillery. Lucas squinted his eyes as he used his spiritual perception to confirm Rendon's report. Oh, they even prepared some traps around their estate. They are quite meticulous. He immediately spotted the hidden traps with powerful vision. Ordinary scouts wouldn't have noticed them, but they could never escape his eyes. The Transcendents and the elite knights will follow me to attack. The rest will surround the estate and take care of those who will slip through our hands, he instructed with a cold look. Yes, Lord Venerable. Rendon saluted before he left to disseminate his command to the troops. A moment later, a small unit was formed. They were the strongest warriors in his troops, and their task was to support him in destroying the Grand Duke's defense forces. Everyone, prepare to charge at my signal, Lucas shouted as he unsheathed his broadsword. He didn't even bother to take out his shield. To him, defense was unnecessary against these weaklings. Everyone tightly gripped their weapons while quietly waiting for his signal. They were eager to show their might to Lucas. Meanwhile, the rest of the troops spread out to surround the enemy's escape routes. At this moment, Alaric was staring intently at his father, waiting for him to give the signal. Suddenly, Lucas raised his hand and issued an earth-shaking roar. Charge! A small unit of about 50 warriors charged toward the towering walls of the Grand Duke's estate. Their surprising move didn't escape the eyes of Thomas, the commander of the Grand Duke's army. Fire! Don't let them get close to the walls, he bellowed. In the next moment, the small unit led by Lucas faced heavy artillery bombardment. Boom! Boom! Bang! Bang! However, no attacks caused any damage to the attacking force. This was because everyone was protected by an invisible wall casted by Samaya. So this is her solid protection ability. It is only B grade, but it can actually defend against heavy artillery attacks. Alaric thought to himself, shocked by Samaya's integrated monster trait. Although she didn't have any attack-related integrated traits, her supporting skills could amplify the strength of an army. The large arrows from the ballistas, the mana beam from the mana cannon, and the large boulders from the catapults merely bounced off, leaving them unscathed. What? Thomas was filled with disbelief when he saw that the small unit wasn't even affected by their barrage of attacks. Just then, a colossal pressure fell upon him which almost forced him to kneel. His face turned pale with fright. What terrifying aura! He thought that he could exchange a few moves with Lucas, but he realized how stupid that thought was. In the face of this absolute power, the strength he was so proud of was meaningless. My lord, it seems like you have provoked the wrong people. Whoosh! It has been a while, Thomas. An indifferent voice drifted into his ears, making him feel a wave of terror. He quickly turned his head and saw a silver-haired middle-aged man with a gaunt face, staring at him with a nonchalant expression. Lucas! Chapter 319. The Grand Duke's Fear. Thomas was petrified. He didn't even sense how he had suddenly appeared next to him. He quickly backed away while keeping his eyes on Lucas, but the latter's figure blurred and reappeared behind him. Whoosh! Lucas grabbed him by the neck and lifted him like a chicken about to be slaughtered. Listen, I do not want to kill you. Surrender or die. Thomas grabbed Lucas' arm and tried to break free from his grip, but he found himself unable to escape. Get your hands off me! He gritted his teeth, his face slowly turning blue from the lack of air. So you have chosen death. What a pity. Lucas sighed with a regretful expression. Crack. The sound of bones cracking echoed as he put strength into his grip. Thomas emitted croaking sounds. He struggled vigorously, but Lucas' grip was akin to that of an eagle's claw to its prey, tight and inescapable. KHHHK. With one final snapping sound, he crushed Thomas's neck and casually threw him to the ground. Thud. Thomas's body trembled, but he didn't die immediately. The immense life force of a transcendent knight kept him awake. He stared at Lucas with a gaze filled with fear. It looked like he wanted to say something, but only weak gasps came out of his mouth. When the soldiers witnessed how easily their commander was defeated, they were horrified. Some were frozen in place, while others turned around and fled without hesitation. Run! We stand no chance against them. Looking at the fleeing soldiers, Lucas shook his head, his eyes filled with disdain. Your warriors have been at peace for too long that they have forgotten how to fight. Pathetic. Thomas, who was dying, knew that those words were meant for him to hear. They are veteran warriors of the Grand Duke's mansion. It's not that they are weak, but you are just too terrifying, he thought while looking at Lucas's back. Kill them if they will not surrender. Lucas shouted to the elite unit he had brought with him. Upon hearing his command, Rendon and the others immediately pursued the escaping enemies. Those who didn't surrender died under their blades. Some warriors resisted, but how could they stop a unit composed of transcendents and elite knights? In less than half an hour, hundreds of warriors were killed, while the others fled in all directions. Lord Venerable, a few managed to slip away, but our troops should be able to handle them, Rendon reported respectfully. Lucas wasn't worried about this. The enemies who had slipped away were just ordinary soldiers, so they wouldn't pose a threat to his troops. Gather those who had surrendered and tie them up. Lucas calmly ordered. Yes, my lord. The warriors of the Grand Duke's mansion quickly fell apart. It was a one-sided battle. Lucas turned his head and found out that Thomas had already died. The man died with his eyes wide open. Lucas lost interest and looked away. You are next, Lloyd Estania. In the Grand Duke's mansion, Lloyd Estania received news about Thomas's death and the complete defeat of his troops. His face darkened as he clenched his fists. Gloomy-faced, he wore his battle armor and grabbed his weapon. He then stepped out of the mansion and waited for Lucas to arrive. My lord, please I beg you. You must surrender immediately. Otherwise, you will only be killed, cried out the old official who had strongly opposed his recent decisions. My lord, I also think that we shouldn't fight. Even Sir Thomas was killed without being able to fight back. Only death awaits us if we choose to resist. Another one exclaimed with a look of agitation. Everyone was scared out of their wits. However, Lloyd merely snorted in response. If you want to surrender, then leave immediately. I will never submit. Everyone could see his trembling shoulders, which betrayed his emotions. Suddenly, they saw a figure descending from the sky. It was a middle-aged man with a gaunt face. He had a faint smile on his lips and the look of contempt was evident in his eyes. Lloyd, 2 decades have passed, but you have never changed. You are still the same pathetic man you were before. Lucas muttered in a mocking voice. Lucas! The Grand Duke was furious. He felt humiliated, but not one of his trusted subordinates spoke up for him. Lucas slowly approached him with steady steps. Each step he took was like a hammer that struck Lloyd's chest, filling him an unprecedented feeling of terror. Are you going to stab me with that sword? Lucas sent him a disdainful look. Lloyd's legs trembled as he stubbornly glared at Lucas. He wanted to move his hand, but he found himself frozen like a statue. He didn't want to admit it, but he was terrified. Lucas, you cannot touch me. I am His Majesty's younger brother. You will face retaliation from the imperial family if something happens to me, he blurted out in a trembling voice. Lucas sneered at his words. He tapped the Grand Duke's shoulder and clicked his tongue. Lloyd, stop fooling yourself. We both know what is happening. The second prince has abandoned you. The crown prince wants you dead, and His Majesty's people are silent. Do you really not know what is going on? Sweat trickled down the Grand Duke's face as soon as he heard this. He knew that Lucas was telling the truth, but he didn't want to accept it. His face contorted with fury. With an ear-piercing scream, he made a surprise attack on Lucas, stabbing him with his sword. Lucas calmly raised his hand and stopped the Grand Duke's sword between his fingers. Lloyd widened his eyes in disbelief. He had imbued most of his mana into that attack, but Lucas actually stopped it so effortlessly. He gritted his teeth and released his remaining mana in a last-ditch attempt to injure Lucas. However, Lucas didn't even flinch. He exhaled a breath and looked at Lloyd with unconcealed mockery. Trash. Chapter 320, title at the end. Crack. Lloyd's sword broke in half when Lucas applied more strength to his fingers. What? He stood rooted to the ground as he looked at his broken sword. He actually broke a relic with his bare hands. The Crown Prince told me to bring you back to him alive, but I think killing you is a better choice. Lucas's chilling voice suddenly echoed. The Grand Duke could no longer hide his fear. He forced out a smile. Lord Lucas. He wanted to say something, but Lucas gripped him by the neck. Do you know how I killed Thomas? Lloyd couldn't speak due to the pressure being put on his neck. He could only utter choking sounds. He also tried to gather his mana and extricate himself from Lucas, but he was unable to break free. Flailing around, he stared at Lucas with a pleading look. KKK. HKK. With a demonic smile, Lucas muttered. I snapped his neck. Hearing this, Lloyd struggled even harder, but to no avail. At this moment, a few servants loyal to the Grand Duke rushed over. Have mercy, my lord. Please have mercy. Just then, a figure appeared before them, blocking their path. No one is allowed to interfere. It was Rendon who had just arrived after killing a bunch of warriors from the Grand Duke's mansion. At this moment, his armor and even his face were drenched in blood, making him look like he had just stepped out of a mountain of corpses. The servants of the Grand Duke and the officials of Grateja were filled with fear upon seeing him. They didn't dare take another step forward, afraid that this devil incarnate would misunderstand and kill them. Meanwhile, Lucas suddenly added more strength to his grip. The Grand Duke, who was already struggling to breathe, convulsed harder. His face slowly turned blue, and his veins protruded, looking like they were about to burst at any second. Crack. A cracking sound echoed, making everyone shiver in trepidation. They turned heads over and saw the Grand Duke with his head tilted to the side, frothing at the mouth. Lucas was disgusted when he saw the Grand Duke making such a mess. He decisively tossed him to the ground and used the man's clothes to wipe off the saliva on his hand. "Disgusting," he muttered. The Grand Duke was still conscious, but his mind was in utter chaos. Before he closed his eyes, he saw Lucas staring at him with a disgusted expression. A minute later, the Grand Duke, Lloyd Estania, breathed his last. Lucas sensed that the Grand Duke was no longer breathing, so he pulled his eyes away from his lifeless body. He then stared coldly at the remaining people from the Grand Duke's mansion and issued a command. "Interrogate these people at once. If they are found involved with the Crimson Tower, execute them immediately. As for those who are not guilty of any crime, lock them up to await their judgment." As soon as he gave the order, Rendon and the others immediately took action. "Yes, Lord Venerable." In the next half an hour, Rendon led everyone to capture the Grand Duke's people. They were then interrogated individually. Those who refused to answer were killed on the spot, and the ones who were found guilty were also executed. Surprisingly, there were some people who were not involved with any criminal activities, so the warriors tied them and locked them into prison. At this moment, Alaric was interrogating someone when a notification popped up in front of him. Under. Mission complete. Rewards: 1000 battle points, 100 EXP, 20 stat points. Random trait upgrade card X1. Under. Do you want to use your random trait upgrade card? Yes. No. Seeing this, Alaric stood up and tapped the shoulders of the warrior who was with him and said, "You continue with the interrogation. I will go and take care of something first." "Yes, my lord." After excusing himself, Alaric found a secluded corner and clicked, "Yes. Congratulations. You have upgraded Close Combat, C, to Close Combat, B." Alaric was ecstatic. Close Combat was one of the most useful traits in battle, and it was something that significantly improved his combat skills. All of a sudden, a wave of information flooded his mind. These foreign memories were imprinted in his mind as if a new page had been added to a book. The feeling, although nothing new to him, still made him greatly surprised and fascinated. Amazing! He quickly pulled the science screen with a thought to check his progress. Alaric's Silver Sword Elite Knight, EXP. 435. 535/1000. Potential A. Traits: Horseback Riding, C. Swordsmanship, SSS. Close Combat, B.
Archerie, E. Intigne, E. Tracking, D. Sixth Sense, D. Monster Affinity, D. Mana Gathering, C. Appraisal, B.
Strength, 200. Stamina, 250. Agility, 220. Vitality, 195. Endurance, 198. Mana, 250. Battle points, 6,700. 7,700. Stat points, 0, 20. Requirements for the next advancement: 1,000 EXP, 250 in all attributes, and 10,000 battle points. He was already halfway through his EXP requirement and more than 3/4 of his battle point requirement. Just a few months had passed since he had become an elite knight, but he was already close to advancing again. The thought of his own breakthrough speed made Alaric feel a bit scared and excited. "My lord, what are you doing over there?" A voice filled with confusion suddenly drifted into his ears. Hearing this, Alaric closed the cyan screen and turned his head. Sir Stephen. It was Stephen the sly snake. Stephen, who was unaware of his thoughts, smiled faintly. You look so happy, my lord. You must be thrilled after defeating the Grand Duke. His voice was filled with flattery. Alaric gave a nod and replied with a strange smile. Who would not be happy? We destroyed someone who had betrayed the Empire. I enjoy killing traitors the most. Stephen's smile stiffened upon hearing his words. It sounded like he was insinuating something which made him feel alarmed. Does he know that I am a spy? That shouldn't be possible. My lord is right. Traitors must be killed. Stephen let out a dry chuckle.